June 10, 1987. South Korean dictator Chung Do-won, having reached the end of his official presidential mandate and willing to step down, announces his choice for a successor. This appointment, which oversteps any electoral process, triggers the wrath of the students and the liberals, who were hoping for democratic reforms. June 10th to the 18th, 1987. In a matter of days, over 1 million protesters take to the streets all over the country. U.S. forces in Korea are ordered to remain on lockdown in their barracks. North Korea does not fail to notice the situation in the south. Agents infiltrate designated circles in order to increase the level of chaos, while military forces are put on alert. June 19, 1987. While police and security forces are about to be overwhelmed, President Chun mobilizes the army in the streets. Hard-pressed and panicked by a hostile crowd, an officer orders his troops to fire. In a matter of minutes, the shooting spreads all over the streets of Seoul. June 19th to the 21st, 1987. The crackdown is brutal, resulting in over 1,000 casualties and many more arrests. June 21st, 1987. With U.S. troops still confined to their barracks and the ROK Army deployed in the streets, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung decides the time has come for Korea's reunification. June 22, 1987. When the North Korean artillery barrage rolls over the DMZ at dawn, U.S. and ROK units, disorganized by the civil unrest, are taken by complete surprise. June 22nd to the 27th, 1987. Within a few hours, the first lines of defense are overwhelmed. Within a few days, the battered U.S. and ROK units are pushed back to a last perimeter around the vital harbor of Busan. November 3, 1978. Vietnam and the USSR sign a mutual defense treaty aimed at containing China's influence. December 25, 1978. 2 months later, with Soviet support, Vietnam launches a full-scale invasion of Cambodia, China's ally. January 1, 1979. Deng Xiaoping meets Jimmy Carter, seeking American support against Vietnam. February 15, 1979. China terminates its 30-year-old Treaty of Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Assistance with the USSR. February 17, 1979. China invades Vietnam and warns the USSR not to interfere. February 1979. Nonetheless, the USSR sends warships and naval troops to Vietnamese waters and calls in mechanized troops to the Sino-Soviet border. Late February 1979. With its offensive bogged down in Vietnam, China realizes it can't afford to let the USSR get the upper hand and stab it in the back. March 2nd, 1979. Taking advantage of the absence of a main naval squadron and the incomplete buildup of Soviet forces, the PLA launches a surprise attack. Their objective: seizing and destroying the main Soviet supply base at Vladivostok. June 1982. The Falklands War, Margaret Thatcher's war, ends in a complete British victory. The Iron Lady is at the top of her popularity and influence. September 1982. While on an official visit to Beijing, the British Prime Minister expresses Britain's wish to see China extending the lease of Hong Kong. Deng Xiaoping counters this by putting forward China's will to recover all of its territories that are still under foreign administration. 1983. For a year, negotiations are pursued with no positive results. When they reach a deadlock, the Chinese premier bluntly states that he could walk in and take the whole lot this afternoon. Encouraged by her aura as a victorious war leader in the Falklands, the British Prime Minister takes up the gauntlet and orders the reinforcement of Hong Kong's garrison. In retaliation, China masses troops on Hong Kong's border, hoping to force her to reconsider Britain's position. 6 months later, the Iron Lady hasn't yielded an inch, and even convinces several Commonwealth states to stand alongside Britain. April 19, 1984. When it was unable to recover through diplomacy, China decides to recover by force. On April 19, 1984, at 1 minute past midnight, China recalls its ambassador to Great Britain after transmitting a last declaration of war. 1945 to 1975. Japan-Soviet relationships are poisoned by the Soviet occupation of the Kuril Islands. Hence, the two countries have not been able to ratify a formal peace treaty since the end of World War II. 1979 to 1980. The Soviet Union increases troops and naval assets in the Kuril area. Japan retaliates by hardening its stance towards the USSR and increasing its military spending. 1982. Japan allows the deployment of U.S. advanced F-16 bombers on its soil. The USSR answers by transferring SS-20 missiles from Europe. 1983. The Japanese Prime Minister declares his intent to turn Japan into an unsinkable aircraft carrier. The reply from the USSR is immediate. In an era of modern technology, unsinkable aircraft carriers do not exist. November 1984. The joint U.S.-Japanese naval exercise Fleet X-85 in the Sea of Japan gets as close as 500 nautical miles from Vladivostok. The Soviet fleet is put on high alert. December 4th, 1984. Fleet X ends, but Soviet Navy intelligence and the Politburo are convinced that it was just a rehearsal for a real imminent strike. The green light is given for a preemptive strike on Japan and its U.S. naval bases. December 6th, 1984. When the coded message, "Climb Mount Norodnaya," is transmitted to Soviet forces, several airborne and naval infantry divisions are ready to strike Japan. At dawn, the first wave of Soviet paratroopers lands on Japan, while a mechanized thrust strikes from the Kuril Islands. November 9th, 1989. The Iron Curtain cracks apart, while Soviet troops in Germany remain in their barracks on Mikhail Gorbachev's direct orders. 1991. When the Warsaw Pact is disbanded, influential party, army, and KGB members, concerned about an imminent dissolution of the Soviet Union, decide to overthrow Gorbachev. August 18th to the 19th, 1991. Activating a state emergency plan, the rebellion leaders arrest Gorbachev, Yeltsin, several liberal deputies, and anyone suspected of opposing the coup. August 21st, 1991, a state committee of the state of emergency, composed of the Putsch leaders, is created to manage the country. End of August 1991. Although the defection of former Warsaw Pact members can't be undone, the strategic naval bases in the Baltic states are quickly and violently reoccupied. Autumn 1991. Left almost alone to face NATO in Europe, the USSR initiates a diplomatic switch towards its last communist neighbors, China and North Korea. Early 1992. In order to seal the new friendship with its Asian allies, the USSR agrees to secret deliveries of some of its most advanced weaponry. April 1992. The military buildup in Asia has not gone unnoticed among UN troops. Units are put on high alert along the DMZ, and the USS Enterprise is sent to patrol the Sea of Japan. April 15th, 1992. An explosion of unknown origin strikes the USS Enterprise's stern, rendering her motionless, while a Soviet squadron is sailing in her direction.